Okay, cool. All right, so 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. Look, we're in for a good one today, y'all. Definitely a lot of high energy, a lot of things going on. We may even have a guest or two popping in to keep us some company during this interview.
Yes.
Man, I got to give a big shout out to my cousin again. I know for my people who have kind of been tapping in with me for a while, depending on how long you've been with the podcast journey, you would hear me kind of talk about my cousin DJ and how he's been able to connect me with a lot of like-minded individuals. Shout out to Ted, shout out to Matt, shout out to Alex. I could really just go on, but nonetheless, my cousin is very resourceful, and today's interview will be no different, man. She is amazing. She's very well versed. I've been following the content for quite some time now, and to just see everything that she's doing, to see that the resource that she's even being for other people who may want to even follow in her footsteps and kind of get into the industries and get involved the way that she is, just the same too. And just the woman that she is, a lot of the hats that she wears, we'll get into all of that today. But before I let her pretty much just take over and let her do everything that she's doing, I have to first ask her, but I'm gonna ask her really to do two things because I want y'all to hear me say it in comparison to when I say it, and y'all just gonna know how this interview is gonna go today. So can you please pronounce your name for the people, how you pronounce it for me the very, very, very first time that we talked?
Yes. Hola, my name is Aurelia Michael-Holmgren. If you feeling spicy, or Aurelia is fine, or Aura, but yes, it's Aurelia.
We're gonna do aura because I like the aura, but y'all heard the R's rolling off
There
of that.
you
It's not
go.
with that. So
If the R is not in your ministry, they'll do it.
most definitely. But how are you doing today? How's everything on your end?
Today, I feel really blessed. Monday is my favorite day of the week. I know most people it's Fridays, but to me, Monday is an opportunity for newness, to reset from however the weekend went or the week went. And when it was the other day was the first of the month, was also a Monday, was also the official second half of the year. I can't help but feel blessed. I'm feeling good today. I've got my +1 here. It says Pepper. He just felt like he needed to be on the mommy today, so he'll just be hanging out with us.
I love that. Yeah, you may be the first person who I've heard say that as far as their favorite day of the week. So we love unique because some people, depending on who you ask. I got into a big debate some years ago about when the week starts. Some people argue that it starts on Sunday. Some people argue that it starts on Monday. So I think it really just depends. For me, I was more of that Monday starter, but I guess if we want to be specific and look at the calendars and things like that, cool, Sunday. But that's the day to rest. So for me, I'm not starting the week on a rest day. But that's neither here nor there. We're not again, because I know some of them are still listening too. But no, I definitely do love that. Big shout out to Pepper. We're very happy to have him for this interview today. But all right, so look, I know that we are going to have quite a network of people tap in. I know people from your side. I know people from my side, but we're going to have some new people along the way. So probably people who know nothing about us, but somehow, some way came across this episode. So just to do our due diligence, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, on the same playing field, just do two things for me. Can you, one, just tell me a little bit about yourself, and then can you, two, just tell me what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today?
All right, a little bit about myself. So I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, but I'm like a Valley girl now, and I live in LA in the Valley. I went to University of Maryland, College Park. I double majored in dance and business management. Went to New York to pursue dance, came to LA to pursue dance, went to New York to do Broadway, came back to do some more theater, and now I'm heading back to New York to do some more theater. But I'm really big on not being categorized by labels, because there are a lot of things that I do or that I've done that I don't necessarily do currently. So I always say I'm a heart healer, I'm a people connector, I'm a firecracker on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of July. I'm a warm cocoa on December 25th. Like, I am a community builder. And I just hope that with every person that hears my voice or is in front of me and we get to connect, that you walk away better than when we first met.
Amazing. Shout out to the VX too, man. We got some people tapping.
Come on, all day, every day. You know what's up.
Shout out to the VX, man. I love it. But no, to hear that and to know that, I've spoke to a lot of people on the podcast who wear multiple hats, and to know sometimes and to hear their bios and their interests, and to sometimes I can't even remember everything that they went through, and just everything that they're involved in, and as you said, even things that they may have done years ago or previously that's not necessarily
Hmm.
today, but still a part of who they are as a person. So to hear all of that, to hear what's encompassed under such an aura, no pun intended, is really just amazing. And I'm very just, to hear the back and forth. I know from coast to coast, that's not the easiest thing to do, especially for what you're pursuing and what you really want to do. So I really want to take it back some. I really want to take it back before we got into the double major and before we got into the school, before we left the Bronx and everything like that. Where did the interest peak when it came to dance? Was that something that you grew up around? Was that something that family was involved in? How did that really
Hmm.
happen for you?
Well, I'm technically really the only artist in my family. My family's full of teachers, lawyers, doctors, all the things. And my parents put me in everything. I'm an only child. So cheerleading, gymnastics, ice skating. And then we started at the Dance Theater of Harlem. And I did that all the way from when I was like 3 to about 18. Then when I got to college, I started a dance team called Dynamic, which started in October 2004. So we are now heading into our 20th year. But I think my love for dance always just came from my love for music. When I used to hit skate key in the Bronx with my dad and be like, that's my jam. And I'd be getting on the dance. Like it's the music that's always driven me. So that was one of the things that I felt most passionate about. And then when I got to college, honestly, I was a dance major, but it was modern dance and I haven't done it since. But what it did teach me was the discipline that comes behind when you're being stretched, because it wasn't something I wanted to do. I honestly didn't feel like my body was created to do that movement, but I just needed to graduate. So in doing that, I met an incredible teacher in my senior year who really pushed me and was like, you can apply some of these things to your future, even if you don't do this dance style directly. So no one in my family ever did it, but my parents, who are retired teachers, supported me and have supported me 150% since day one.
I love that we got a fellow member of Omega Psi Phi, my chapter brother. He actually popped on. He just said Skate Key was lit. So shout out to the New Yorkers.
Come on, you already know, especially before it moved.
Yeah.
The first spot was the best. The second spot was cool. Then it became more of a dance party. But the first spot was it.
Perhaps I'm aging myself. I don't know what y'all are talking
And
about.
shout out to the bros.
That's cool. Shout out to all of the New Yorkers here. But no, to hear that, that's a story, and a lot of times that's how things can go from just not necessarily, I guess, flocking towards something or wanting to do something, but as a turn, I don't know really what it means to be the only child, but I know that means that in speaking to only children and knowing only children, I know that your parents will involve you in every single thing that they can until we figure something out, or just to not have you feel like you're sitting around. And even it's a social thing.
Exactly.
Having a sibling or sometimes having somebody that's right at the house or older, younger, it's kind of that quick, easy rapport. You just do things, you see everybody every day. But an only child, it can be different. Just coming home, you literally are doing everything. Sometimes it feels like by yourself,
Yeah.
amongst your friends, of course, and other family members, but I'm saying that every day, that just in the house type interaction. So I get that and I love that. Now and I feel like too, even for what you wanted to do, New York even may have had some influence on that too, because as you spoke to Broadway and as you spoke to just everything that goes on in there, from the shows to just performances to just, I don't know how many of my people have taken even some public transportation or subway or something like that, or saw the videos, and really just, you can get a performance there for a couple of dollars. Really.
Oh yeah. I got friends that still hit on the train. For some money.
So I love that. Now, but a big kudos to 20 years. 20 years having a dance group is no small feat whatsoever. So big snaps to that. My little brother was actually born in
Thank you.
2004. So to hear that and now to know that's
I
kind of,
know my child is 20 years old. It's kind
yeah.
of crazy because I didn't even want to start it, and my friends made me, and it was the best decision that I didn't want to make.
So now, and that's something that I want to kind of take a deeper dive into too. Now, so with people kind of coming to you, with your friends kind of even knowing you, knowing your interests, knowing more so your passions, and obviously I would assume that they would want you to do something like this because they know that whether it's something that you're gung ho about, whatever you put your name on, whatever you put your stamp on, you're going to put that best foot forward 9 times out of 10. So with really building the foundation for Dynamic, with really getting things off the ground and running, what was really your mindset? Because like you said, this wasn't something that you were just happy-go-lucky about. It wasn't something that you were just jumping for joy about. So what was that really making that transition to get things started?
I don't know if I realized it then, but I've definitely been called to be a leader. Um, it's just in my nature, even if I'm not trying to lead, if I'm in a group, people tend to flock to me. Not like, oh, not like pull up, toot my own horn or anything, but there's just an assurance that my parents instilled in me from day one that like I can literally do anything that I want. And that was part of getting my Broadway debut was like none of the credentials and the resume said I should have been on Broadway, but I believed I could. And so it was already written. So starting then in 2004, we were on a dance team already that was kind of fizzling out. And I just wasn't interested in replicating or continuing the foundation that they had built. And so being really big in leadership, I was an RA at the time as well. I was starting to pledge Delta, like leadership to me, service, all of those things in combination. The nine of us literally just sat in the gym area, like over smoothies. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to do this, but I need to know, who are my other players? Who's going to help out? How are we going to start this? But I definitely didn't expect it to make it 20 years. I definitely didn't expect it to make it out of the pandemic, but for it to still be going and to now enter its 20 year and just to see how it's evolved. We didn't have social. We just got Facebook when I was a sophomore. So to see now how they're utilizing social media and just seeing the growth of it, I knew at that time that I was meant to be a leader and I probably wasn't going to follow anybody else starting the group. So it made sense at the time.
And I'm kind of glad that you even answered that the way that you did, because it kind of segues into my next few thoughts too, about thinking about what was going on really in 2004 in so many different aspects of life. From a digital aspect of life, like you said, social media, and just
Mhm.
what was really prevalent back then, from a just a lifestyle, from a financial side of things. Even as you said, we've made it through a pandemic at this point. And I watched a lot of, as someone who started their business during the pandemic, I've watched a lot of people and I've had a lot of conversations that have gone multiple ways, that have gone, people have come into business during the pandemic, have flourished.
Mhm.
People have gone out of business. People have contemplated business and not really known what to do. People have maybe had to take a 180 with their,
Pivot on purpose. Yep.
people create different businesses because their main or their 9 to 5 just wasn't really cutting it, or they weren't the essential worker per se. So what were some really eye-opening experiences or eye-opening moments for you over these 20 years, from, like you said, just not necessarily recognizing your calling in the beginning? Because I think that's a beautiful thing too. I think a lot of times we just immerse ourselves into things, or we know what we're passionate about, we know what we love to do, or even, like you said, what we were called to do by others,
Mhm.
which is also a calling on our life, whether we realize it or not. So what were some eye-opening things over these 20 years that really showed you, hey, I'm not new to this, I'm true to this, this is what I'm.
Well, I know that even in high school, when I was on the cheer team, I think that's really where the leadership started because I was really shy in eighth, ninth grade. I had went through a pretty traumatic experience for me at the time where my first boyfriend had got hit by a car trying to cross a highway in Co-op City. It's a pretty well known thing that happened in October of '99, and so I was literally going into high school starting, and I got into a very depressive state. I joined the cheerleading team. People were not very nice. I was very quiet, very meek. And by the time I finished, we had created a role for me called junior coach. So it was above the captain. And through those years, I think that's where my leadership skills started to show. Since my parents were also teachers, I love teaching to this day. That is the most important thing to me. I am a coach. It doesn't matter what arena. It all comes back to me loving to teach people and to help people and to help them push past their limits. And so through my dance team, you can just see people that maybe wouldn't have had a chance on another team, people that never would have thought of doing dance, people who this was their only home. They had nowhere else to go to. After school, they would come straight to us. And so to see people's mind, body, spirits evolve over those years, we made it really important that the alumni continue to come back. And so even when I went to New York and then went to LA and then went to New York and like I go, back and forth depending on the season I'm in, I recognize how much I love connecting people and I love helping people. And my business too, one of my businesses, Voice on Demand, also started in June of 2020 during the pandemic. And it has grown in ways that I couldn't even imagine, meeting people who aren't even interested in voiceover, but just want to empower their voice and be able to speak their truth and not, regardless of consequence, being unconditionally confident has shown that all along I was made to be a leader. And sometimes being a leader often means you're not in the spotlight, and becoming comfortable in that I can bring people to a place where they can then stand on my shoulders and tell me how beautiful the view is, as opposed to it being about me, that no, I am the vessel. So it's a pretty awesome life to live. I love it.
Humble, humble, humble. I love. And I also do think that some of the best leaders really lead from behind the scenes, or are not always
Mm-hmm.
that person that you see at the forefront, because that person at the forefront needed someone to get to that forefront, or to put
Right.
everything together, or you need those. It wasn't until I really got into broadcasting and journalism and media and everything that I realized how important producers were. And while we see the talent, while we see everybody at face value, how do you think they got that camera angle? How do you know when they know the cue to start speaking? How do you know that they know that their tie wasn't straight or something like that? There's so many things that go into that element of people being behind the scenes that they definitely need their credit just the same. But you teased it a little bit, and we're gonna get into the voiceover too, because I'm very, very interested in that, both personally, but also just because I've had people put that out there. I've had people do things like that. I've even saw recently, like some of the, I love when they kind of release movies, but they'll also show you kind of like behind the scenes with the characters, and kind of showing you them like in the room doing all the. I think it's like the coolest thing, or how these people just evoke emotion sometimes from just reading a script. That's so cool. But with gathering dynamic, with putting everything together, I could imagine that the foundation that you laid, what you really started, what you really came into business as, is much different than kind of what it looks like maybe 20 years ago. While the foundation may still be there, the principles and everything are succinct, and you have to change with over time.
Mm-hmm.
We're still operating the way we were in 2004 over 24, we'd be in pretty big trouble here. So would you say that when it comes to the marketing, when it comes to really getting the word out there of what the Dynamic Dance Group does, of what you guys are doing, where you guys are, even when you're looking for other people or joining, because I don't really know, I guess, necessarily how the process works for joining a dance group. So I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying in layman's terms. What does it look like for when people are discovering who you guys are, a dance group, maybe see you perform, come across social media or anything like that? How do you guys truly market to,
Mm-hmm.
to the people that are out there, especially thinking about you guys are 20 years in, you're not just kind of like newly discovered.
Yeah. So originally in the 2004s, in the early 2000s, most dance teams only had people from your school. So we didn't really need to promote outside of like our fair that we had at the beginning of the year, or we put some flyers up in the dorms. But right around 2010, maybe, there was a team, this is all in the DMV, there's a team that started allowing people from outside the school, people that weren't even in school. And once people saw how much of a powerhouse they were, everybody kind of started to pull that in. So now, so obviously they're still in Maryland and I'm here, but from what I see and what I've been talking to sometimes with the president, they still do the same things. Except they're doing now the TikTok reels, and they're doing little skits to like send out to people, and they're doing free classes to get people from the community to come in. They go to outside classes and meet people there. So I think it's very similar. It's just now there's certain trends that we didn't have then. Like we didn't make a video to promote because there was nowhere to put that video. So although I'm not as involved now because I'm here, I do get a chance to watch and see that a lot of our foundation is still there. But of course, like anything, you have to evolve over the times.
Most definitely, most definitely, and I could only imagine how cool it was watching the public reaction to it, or sense, or realizing like they, who is that, or you seeing flyers all around,
Mm-hmm.
getting into that, and to now see kind of what it's grown to and what it's become. That's cool. But I also asked that question just to, as you said, what it was back then. It was pretty simple. Everybody who was there, word of mouth, everything like that. It was pretty simple. But now we've kind of gone to a place where you've allowed outsiders, you've done different things, and it really just goes to show
Yeah.
things evolving with performance, with creative. I even think about my alma mater per se, East Carolina, and where now they do something with our step show where we can bring alumni back to participate with the actual undergrad. I think that's like the coolest thing in the world.
Even the video now of like nobody recorded my coming out show. I can't find video anywhere. But now, when during the pandemic, they had some of the lines like recording videos, like full-fledged productions, and then now some like everyone's posting, and I was like, I can't say I'd prefer that, but it'd been nice to have a video or two, from 2004 or something.
I think
No,
about too,
2005.
I think about if TikTok was around during that age and kind of what things would have looked like or how
Yeah,
it would have been. We were thinking about everybody back then. I remember we thought we were
we're
like,
still on MySpace.
right, right. And we were looking at like the America's Got Talent, America's Best Dance Crew. We were looking at things like that,
Hmm.
being that you got serves and the stomp the yards and get.
Yep.
So I could imagine what it really would have been like to see that happen. So you mentioned the pandemic as well, but you also mentioned another venture coming as a result of that. So with the voiceovers and everything of the sort like that. So to hear that, and now correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, to hear that this business was something that you got started during the pandemic with the
Hmm.
why? I'm gonna just simply say why,
I
because I
love it.
think about, that could starting a business is already hard as is, but starting a business during the pandemic arguably had to be one of the most difficult things ever, especially if, you're depending on how your social media presence was, depending on how you were socially, depending on your marketing, depending on what you knew about that. Granted, everybody was on social media more. There was an increased presence, increased traffic. But if you didn't know how to navigate that, or if you didn't fit in this algorithm per se, it
Hmm.
would all be kind of falling on deaf ears. So
Yeah.
you with thinking about your passion of helping, your passion of just wanting to be a resource and funnel that knowledge onto others.
Hmm.
How did this now turn into a business and why during the pandemic?
Well, in short form, I did it because someone who was quite a stranger kind of told me I couldn't. So I started in 2017. I was doing the Donna Summer musical on Broadway, and someone had mentioned, "Oh, you have such a nice voice. You ever thought about voiceover?" So I went to school while I was in New York for it. I took all the classes, and then when we closed, my husband, then boyfriend at the time, decided to move back to LA, and I took a final class with someone, and he basically told me like my equipment was wrong, my demo all sounded the same, I couldn't compete with people who do it full time if I wanted to do it part time. And when I asked him, like, what ways can I get better, his only answer was to work with me. And so from there, I packed up all my stuff. I sold whatever I could and I left it behind. And then June 2020 was also, and I said this earlier, it was a Monday, was the 1st of June. And in true Virgo fashion, I was like, we should do a challenge. Now, at this time, I had a company called Aurelia Michael-Living, life coaching company. It had been around since 2011. So I still life coach, but I closed the company in terms of having affiliate coaches and all of that. But that was kind of like our last hurrah was let's do a 30-day challenge. Pick any challenge you want and we'll do it for 30 days. Anybody can join. And so one of my friends, Candace, she's soror, was like, I'm going to do 30 days of auditioning. I was like, auditioning for what? Aren't you like in government or something? And she was like, I do voiceover. I asked who her coach was. She connected me to her coach. And it just took off from there. He told me, I said, all I want to do is make back the money I spent. I had probably spent about $2,500 between classes and equipment. And he was like, oh, you're going to make that and some. And within those 6 months, I was able to make a high 5 figures. So people kept asking, how did you do it? How do you get started? And I honestly got tired of answering the question. And so I taught a class and then another class. And 4 years later now, we're actually having our first ever intensive called Black to School Intensive, which is open to everybody, but is created by the culture. So it's going to be led by all BIPOC instructors. And we're really excited to do that in September. We just released that actually today. So it's pretty awesome.
Look at the timeliness of the interview and all of that. But
Come on.
yeah, we think about a lot of the where we derive motivation from and where we get that
Hmm.
inspiration from and almost what fuels our fire in a sense. And a lot of times that negative can be just that and then some. That could have
Yep.
so many people so many different ways. It could have almost forced the hand of people to feel like this is the end all be all and this is it. But whatever, you exhausted resources, you knew what you brought to the table in a sense. You knew your worth and you knew that it wasn't going to be the easiest thing to do, but you knew that at the end of the day, if somebody thinks I can't do it, that's all the more reason to do it, in a sense. So I love
Mhm.
to hear that, and I love to see that. And I remember even when I believe I signed up for something, I think along the lines of emails, and so I was kind of going through what you were doing, what you offered, and what y'all were then going to plan. So to see it now come into fruition, to really see everything that's going on, as I told you about my interest in just liking that as someone who has been told similar things, like, yo, do you want to do radio? You want to da 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 do this?
Mhm.
Internship in radio. So that was cool. And how to, my first 65 episodes of the podcast were just audio. So it was cool that I kept people's attention, or at least I thought I did that long, that now
Yeah.
we're here. So it was cool to see. But now and thinking about someone who really knows nothing about getting started within the industry, when it comes to
Mhm.
pursue something like that, when it comes to being interested in that, or wanting to even hone in on those skills or improve and enhance them, do you always recommend a coach? Are there other ways other resources that you can exhaust? I feel like now we're in this big Google and YouTube university thing, where everybody just wants to do their own thing and then go on to teach their own classes or their own courses. So what are just some tips or some tricks and to give some insight to people who may be interested in doing that? And if the tips are the tricks to
Mhm.
follow you, then let us know that.
Well, of course, I'll plug that first. But no, recently I created a program because people were asking that same question: how do I get started? So we created a basics to bookings program. So it's an intro class, a master class. It's a 25 plus video intro course, and then it's 8 one-on-one coaching sessions. To me, no matter what way you go, that to me is kind of the direction you go in, because you start with a class, you find out, is this something I really want to do? Sometimes you're not sure, do I want to do commercial? Am I actually interested in animation? So an intro class should give you a well-rounded idea of all of the things. What tends to happen when people go to Google and YouTube University is they start buying equipment and they start auditioning, but they don't know the technique. There are certain things that just require a coach. Same reason I don't do my own hair, the same reason I won't do my own nails, is because I know that there's a professional out there that can either do it for me or teach me how to do it better than myself. And so I think because people are like, well, I talk every day, of course I can do voiceover. There are a lot of other factors. And so being a life coach as well, it gives me the opportunity. It's cool to make some money, but I'm here to help people change their lives. So if we're in the booth or we're on a call and you're constantly like, oh, I just wish I was as good as you. Okay, that's showing up somewhere else in your life where you're comparing to other people and usually considering yourself less than. If you get upset with yourself every time you make a mistake, there's probably some perfectionist things going on. And so with some of my clients, we even have goals that aren't related to voiceover, because I know that achieving those goals or getting closer are going to help them. So I always recommend classes, courses, and coaching. Usually people go the opposite way. They start with a demo, equipment, and auditioning, and then they get a coach. And by then you've spent a lot of money. You've probably wasted a lot of time. I've had clients 77 auditions, find out their microphone is backwards because they don't have someone else on the outside helping them see the things that you can't see. You can't be the doctor and the patient at the same time. So I always say classes, courses, and coaching. The 3 C's, and community,
But
because this is a lonely sport. Community most important over everything.
the quadruple C's to success. I love that. I can even really relate to, because you see a lot of times that people don't try to revert back until they haven't amassed the success or haven't really gotten to where they want to be, and now they decide to tap in with the expert. I think
Like
sometimes,
therapy. It's like
yeah,
you knew instead of, people don't really see therapy as something proactive, it's reactive, but it doesn't have to be. You can do these things ahead of time. That way you're already set up with the tools for what's to come.
whew, okay, might have just spoke to me a little bit there, because I need to therapy, and slowly but surely it's been different signs just coming around me, just saying I need to kind of tap into that and get into that. So I'm going to do that for sure. But no, I think having some sort of foundation with that is important. And especially with, as
Mhm.
you said, you've realized that you could probably tell somebody that that's what you're interested in or that's what you're pursuing. They may laugh. They may look at you crazy. They may say that there's nothing to that or there's nothing in that. It's a lonely road with just branching off to do anything on your
Yep.
own. But in certain industries, in certain respects, sometimes it's just that non-familiarity that people have with things that automatically just makes them shun it away or not necessarily be I guess, gung ho about it. So with you, do you have, I know you said that there's the difference with commercials versus animation versus
Mhm.
script, everything like that. Do you have a particular focus, or do you have a
Oh,
particular
yes.
niche that you
1000%.
love?
I
So
am a commercial girl. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Prices and participation may vary, cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. I am a commercial girl. Why? Because it is so much less time for so much more money. So a lot of people when they first start are like audiobooks. Why? Because they like listening to audiobooks. But recording an audiobook is a lot different than listening to an audiobook. And especially if you're working with new authors, there's a lot more headache behind it. It's not like you're going into this grand studio, you record and you leave. You got to record, you've got to be the director, you've got to be the editor, the sound has to be perfect. And sometimes they'll stop their projects and need to do like a rewrite or an edit. And now you spent 2-3 months when I just want to spend 2 to 3 minutes. And then with animation, some people love making characters and different sounds, but all the voices in my head sound like me. Angry me, happy me, New York me, Maryland me, LA me, but they all sound like me. So unless the animation is looking for me, I'm not really interested in that. So I love doing commercial. Plus, it's the easiest route to get in. It's not the easiest to do. I actually find it one of the hardest because what I'm basically doing is teaching you to be comfortable being yourself and not being presentational and what you think they want. And so everyone's journey is a little different because some people don't realize how much they care about what other people think about what they say. So it takes some time versus those that like really know who they are and aren't afraid to, get a little dirty and make some mistakes are usually the people that progress a little faster.
and it's crazy because I would have honestly thought a little bit of the opposite as far as like the ease. Like I could imagine commercials are probably very tricky and very hard, but I would imagine like the ebooks that probably would drive me crazy. I think just the emotions and just them wanting to sound like a certain way, and then if you have the fictional characters that you want to just be this person that I now have to create or this personality or
Just a
whatever,
lot of time. Like,
it could be a
give me
lot.
some of those hours. I don't have enough hours. I just want to do my McDonald's 30 seconds
Yeah.
and be done.
Move that. Hey, look, that's all it is to it. I love that a lot. For with all of the hats that you wear, have worn, are going to wear, invisible that people can't even see sometimes. What is, I guess, what is next? Like, what is going on? What is happening? Because I know we're going to have this interview. We're having it now. We're having some people tap in and see it, but we're going to have some people that when this drops, they're finding about you for the first time. Now they're rushing to figure out, oh, what can I do? Or how can I do this? Or I want to dance. Or I want to see what they got going on or do whatever. So for a woman who's been coast to coast, group here 20 plus in, voiceovers and the multitude of other businesses and facets that you're involved in. What can people
Mhm.
expect moving forward? As we gear up for the latter half of this year, pretty much. I mean, you honestly, you ask me, the year is over at this point. Once July, once the summer kind of, it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then it's Christmas, and then we're in 2020.
Right. Happy New Year.
Be right. So as we think about kind of this ending of the year, but also going into a new year, and also just
Mhm.
everything that you kind of have going on, what can people expect from you? Is there anything to be on the lookout for? I know you said that you even just debuted something today as we're recording this
Yes.
interview, but what can people look forward to from you?
Absolutely. Well, I had the pleasure this year of leading a group for my church. They have like grow groups, and I led a goal setting group. And so my goal was to take the 7 weeks we were together to work on the 7 last months of the year. So I have been planning this end of the year. This is the first time I've ever done this. I planned a month a week. And so I know exactly what's coming up because I've been planning. So today we launched the um the Black to School Intensive. It's on September 8th. It's a 5+ hour classes plus a panel discussion as well as an evening meetup in some of the major cities. And then as I'm going to New York, so I go to New York August 11th to mid-November, I will be the associate choreographer for a new Broadway show called A Wonderful World about Louis Armstrong, told by the perspective of his four wives. And that opens on November 12th. And then I'll head back here to New York and I'll be finishing up redoing a workbook, which I actually have here. I did this workbook in 2015, I think. Let me see, 2000. 19. I even put myself on the cover. But I am revamping this. It's called 15 Minutes of Fame, Faithfully Advancing Myself Every Day. It's a 30-day workbook, 15-minute activities per day. So I've been revamping it based on the things that I've learned over these last few years. And then I'm also creating an accountability journal because I'm an accountability partner, goal setting, tracking girl. So I'll have a journal tracker that goes with it. And then my husband and I are going on vacation. We're going to Barbados. So look out for some pictures on at Aurelia Michael. And Voice on Demand is still going strong. So once I get back, we'll get back into the Basics to Bookings program. I'll get back into coaching. And you can find us at ourvoiceondemand.com, at Our Voice on Demand on Instagram. That's what I got going on. And who knows, maybe I'll be in a musical next year. Maybe I'll have a national commercial coming up, all the things.
Okay, hey, look, see, that's why I asked that question because you just never know what people are cooking up behind the scenes. You never know what they have going on, what they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Faithfully advancing myself every day. I love that acronym. I'm gonna have to. We're gonna
Thank you.
that one for this one. But no, to like I said, to just hear what you're involved in, to follow the content, to see everything that's going on, to see you moving and grooving, traveling and everything like that. I was gonna ask, where's the vacation? But you already said it in there too.
We were going to do it now, but I was like, then I'm going to work. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we'll hit 2 vacations. We'll hit Barbados and we'll hit Panama, and that'll take us right into the new year.
That'll be amazing. That'll be amazing. Well, look, we from the Down to Business podcast side of things to you, we're obviously full-fledged supporters. We're here to help. I know that my network will be tapping in. I'll be tapping in personally because I'm trying to perfect my skills, see what I can do with this, see where
I know. I'm like, you got the equipment. I'm sure. You ready to go?
I'm ready to get to it. So, but I will say too that it's always very just cool to see while people may be working on things at the forefront or may have things that they're doing in their life or that we see every day. When that screen locks or when that interview is over or when that phone call ends, they are grinding it out or planning here or writing this down or planning for this. I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be here and this. So the world of business ownership, the world of entrepreneurship, man, it is just a journey, just that. But it really makes you appreciative of the process, and even it makes you appreciative hearing other people what they kind of have going on.
Absolutely.
To know that you're not, just the only one running with a chicken with like your head's cut off.
Yeah.
Feeling like a million places at once. So I love that. Now, before we wrap things up, before I tell people where they can find you, where they can tap in with you, follow along, everything like that, do you feel like there's anything that we have not touched on today? Even if there's any other words or anything that you want to leave out there for other business owners, entrepreneurs, for anybody coming across this episode, anything that you got for us?
Well, I think for people that I won't say people who don't consider themselves entrepreneurs, I do encourage you over time to really think about what do you own? Because if we're not entrepreneurs, we don't really own anything. We don't really own our social media. Like anything can be taken. So I encourage you to start thinking about, sometimes it's the gifts you've had for so long. You're like, who would pay to do this? Who would pay to have this? Start thinking about the things that you can put out in the world that adds value. You probably are the solution to a problem that someone, if not millions of someones, are having. And then for my entrepreneurs and those that wear several hats as I do, never feel the pressure to say everything and feel like everything, like there's probably 4 or 5 things I didn't mention. Like I went to FIT for image consulting, but it doesn't make me any less of an image consultant because I don't say it. So many times we strap labels to our forehead, and I never want my obituary to look like my resume. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. It's about who I'm serving. And that's something I had to realize just yesterday when my church choir prayed over me. I was like, oh, I was making New York's trip about me. Oh, I don't want to be in New York. Oh, the subways. Oh, the smells. Oh, the this. And they were like, wait, when did this just become about you? So when you wake up in the morning and start asking, how can I serve and who can I serve? You may find that a lot of the goals that you've been trying to reach either weren't meant to be reached in the first place. They're just stepping stones, a direction, a guidance, or you're doing them out of self-satisfaction and it's not adding value to the world. So how are you going to wake up every morning as if you've already made it? Because you have, this is it. Yesterday doesn't need you anymore. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. But if you wake up every morning as if this is it, that's going to change the places and spaces around you 100%.
I think for me, it took me turning a year older to, I just woke up with a new sense of just gratitude, but also just like motivation. I'm so big on, I remember every year, everybody used to wait until just the first of the month to do this or knock this out or do whatever. It could, why not just do it tomorrow, or why not, the minute I
Yeah.
woke up, just start.
Discipline doesn't need a date. I've been a competitive bodybuilder for 4 years now, and discipline never needed a date. It just starts to become a part of you. The day you start is the perfect day to start.
Facts. And that's why I was just like, it has been, it's crazy to see just sometimes when you stop procrastinating on something, or when you make that phone call, or when you send that email, or do whatever needs to be done, that you realize, wow, if I thought
It's
this,
a easy, the thought of it is more fearful than the actual action.
I think it's gonna be like ripping off a wax strip or something, and it's really not that bad. It's
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've told myself, just especially when it crosses your mind, just to do it. Don't procrastinate, or don't, I'll put it off for later. If it hit your mind at that point, it was for a reason, it was for something. So I've been being very diligent about that, but that was definitely the message that I needed to hear just the same too. So as I spoke to in the beginning, y'all, I told y'all we had one for the books. I was not remiss
I
in
was like,
that.
do you say that with all the get? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, so I tell everybody I'm very excited to be.
I love it.
Everybody gets different waves, but no, to really just, as I said, to see everything that was going on when DJ even connected me, just the bio that he gave me about you and everything of the sort. I love it, y'all. She even just threw the competitive bodybuilding in there at the end, so just let y'all know. Look, like you said, it's not really about what you're doing. It's not really about what's on the resume, what that title is, how many letters you have after your name, or
Are you
whatever.
adding value to the world?
Right.
How do you want to add value?
Yeah. I think about my high school slogan that, it was the first thing that we saw when we got there, but also the last thing, not even really the slogan, but just 6 words that we saw when we got there and when we left. It was enter to learn, and it was leave to serve. And, in the moment, I never really thought about that transcending just high school. But now that I
Yeah.
realize, I think about that every day. And a shout out to the Travis Manion Foundation. He was in the Marines, and he was somebody who we honor at my high school, but he had a
Mhm.
big quote, if not me, then who? And that's kind of what his foundation lives by. And that's a big, just even in life, like in so many different facets, I just think about that, and just think about, as you said, just serving and just that impact. And I think that's
Yeah. And the legacy, that was part of why I got into voiceover, was like, oh my God, 50, 100 years from now, my great grandkids could be like, oh my gosh, I could go on iSpot.tv and see great grandmas. Like my voice gets to literally still live on earth when I'm gone.
And I think about that with the podcast too. It's just going to be hundreds
Yep.
of episodes just sitting out here, just audio, visual. So it's really cool just to think about that. Sometimes that mark, or that digital footprint that you have, or what you own. I think that was a
Yep.
great that you made about ownership, and just about how things can be here one day and gone the next, per se. So what are you really leaving behind? What are people going to say about you when it's all said and done? Because ain't nobody going to remember all these titles, who did what, who was where, how many apostrophes,
Hmm.
what impact did you make, and I think that's arguably, if not the most important, one of the most important things. So
Yeah.
my favorite part, honestly, about the interview is always the call to action. I love it, how we can get on here and we can talk about a lot of different things. You can give the tips, you can give the tricks, you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make him drink it, of course. So before we officially exit the interview, please give us everything you have, as far as when people want to tap in with you, from social media to websites to just following along the journey, to just
Hmm.
everything that you have. Just give it to us.
Yeah. I'm all about simplicity. So you can find me on Instagram at Aurelia Michael, my personal website, aureliamichael.com. You can find out about voiceover on ourvoiceondemand.com, and on Instagram at Our Voice on Demand. We also have a Facebook group. And when you go on Our Voice on Demand, there's a free masterclass called 4 Ways I Made 5 Figures in 6 months. And yes, without an agent. And you can download that and check it out. And you can always email us, hello@ourvoiceondemand.com. And I would really love to hear from you. I know sometimes people give out their info and then you never hear from them again. But my assistant Angela and I are really big. Our whole thing is based on community. My whole life is based on community. Like my friends are my family. As I said, I'm an only child. So any way that I can get people connected, any way that I can get people not just standing on business, but standing on your voice, even if you don't want to do voiceover, you just want to be more comfortable in how you speak at events and how you speak when you're doing a presentation and how you speak to your partner, like standing on your voice. We got you.
Well, I look, I get the plug for the people. I bring the people on here. Y'all listen. I'm a tap in. I don't know about y'all. I done tapped in with so many people that I talk to. It's up to y'all if y'all gonna do it or not. These people, they're not just on here blowing smoke or just saying what they want to say. These are real life experts in their field. These are real life people wanting to be that plug for you. Stand on that business. Do the groundwork so that you don't have to. But it's up to
Yeah.
you. I won't make y'all do anything that y'all don't want to do. As I said, I'm just a messenger here. So, but no, really, thank you so much, really, just for everything, just for really.
My
um,
absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely no problem. It has definitely been a pleasure. I'm very excited just to get this out here, but also very excited just to see everything that's to come, to follow along the journey, to see everything that you really just have going on in life, and really just to see even what's to come, even what motivation, what inspiration will be sparked as a result of this. And obviously, as I said, you have our support 135,000%. Whatever you need from us, from our side, we are always here to help however we can. And then to everybody else, from my people tapping in on Facebook, we've been experimenting with this YouTube live thing, and it's been going cool so far. So shout out to y'all. I'm not as grandpa-ish as y'all think with the technology. We're moving. But to everybody out there who continuously taps in, who continuously shows love to the podcast, I love y'all. I thank y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.
Peace, y'all.